And we're coming to you live from the Built Ford Tough Studio. Boomer Esiason, Greg Giannotti. It's Boomer and Gio on the Fan. Simulcast across the country on CBS Sports Network. And wherever you are in the free Odyssey app. Good Thursday morning. Boomer in a better mood. The Rangers finally won a game. The Knicks blew one to Trae Young and the Hawks, and he's a tough guy to deal with. Jerry will have those details coming up, but man, I am shocked, just like a lot of people are, that Bill Belichick actually took that job, and I think that is a huge knock on all the owners that either have openings or are going to have openings, and they are just scared of bringing in an alpha male who is going to get things done, who's going to take the power of the organization. That's what this is about, man. This is exactly what's going on. And these owners would rather pluck these coordinators and linebacker coaches and special teams coaches and assistant GMs and not pay them a lot of money, and hopefully it turns into Sean McVay or Kevin O'Connell or Zach Taylor or whatever. They don't want a man in that building. They're scared. They are scared. So he goes to North Carolina. It'll maybe be interesting. I don't know. But what just blew me away that job actually ended up being his. Good morning, Boomer. How are you?
Good. You know, yesterday we were talking about this, G, and I was saying that we're going to know in 24 hours. And the reason we were going to know in 24 hours is because the transfer portal is open for business. And they had to look through his 400-page manuscript or manual, whatever the hell you want to call it, and they had to meet or exceed all of his expectations in that. He also hires a former buddy, Mike Lombardi, as his GM, I guess, down there now because, you know, college football at this level has now become pro football, and it's all about the money and who's going to spend the money, and do they have the boosters to support everything that Bill Belichick wants to do, including, and I'm assuming that his son is going to be the heir apparent to Bill. So that's the way, the nepotism in football is just insane. You know that, I know that, and it's all over both college football and, of course, pro football. But there is something kind of unique about this. You know, he's not going to be the guy going on the recruiting trips. You know, this is going to be handled by younger people that are on his coaching staff. They're going to bring him and their parents in to see him, and that would be quite the meeting. And I think reading all the ex-players who have played for him, a lot of them are saying, oh, how is he going to do this? How is he going to treat these guys? They can't treat these guys like he treated us. I think it's actually his ability to get younger players to buy into what he's selling as opposed to the older gazillionaires that he's trying to coach.
Listen, if he could convince a 24-year-old woman to have sex with him, he can convince a 18-year-old kid to play football. I'm sorry.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
He could adapt. He's a smart guy. He could adapt. You know, he's not going to talk to Tom Brady the same way he's going to talk to a young recruit or a freshman or sophomore football player. He's not a dummy. He's going to use some of the same principles that made him successful in the NFL, but he knows this.
Now, I'm looking at this this thing that we have on TV here. This graphic.
Yeah.
And at the bottom it says hired as next UNC head coach on a 5-year contract. I also read it was a 3-year contract. Do we know what it is? Do we know for sure that it's a 5-year contract?
CBS Sports Network's putting it up there.
I see that, but I also read 3-year contract.
What do they call that?
Graphic. It's a graphic.
You know, it was a Chiron?
It's a graphic.
But it's a
graphic. You can call it a Chiron if you want, but it's a graphic.
Okay, just making sure there is another word for it.
It's just a graphic.
It's a Chiron. I'm going to go Chiron.
Got to go. Anyway,
they put it up there confidently.
I think Chiron is inside baseball. Graphic is for the mass population.
Okay, well, we taught him something today.
All right. So I actually think this is kind of unique. I don't know. He wants to go back. He wants to coach. Maybe somebody, in the NFL didn't want to deal with him like you pointed out.
Well, the Falcons didn't.
But I also think that there is something to him wanting to coach this group of young men, and I have an opportunity to still coach at a very high level.
It's 5 years. It contradicts earlier reports that it was 3 years.
All right, there you go. So it is 5 years. So good job by CBS Sports Network.
Yeah.
They are a sports network.
They are, yeah, and they get their chirons right.
Graphics.
Sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, but what do you think of what I was saying earlier, where it's the Atlanta Falcons clearly got scared. They ended up going in a different direction. I know that this was tough timing for the New York Giants as they still have games to play, but we were talking about Bill Belichick to the Giants for years. here he is available. The Chicago Bears, another one of these legacy franchises we talk about. He just looks like he could be on the sidelines in Chicago. Get Josh McDaniels teamed up with Caleb Williams, and let's run this thing back. And it doesn't seem like any of these teams had enough interest, because it was reported that one of the main reasons that he was going so aggressively for this job is because he was disappointed in the interest. It has everything to do with being scared of handing the keys over to somebody else.
Well,
that's what the owners are thinking.
I also think it's timing for North Carolina. So, they got younger at the coaching position, by the way, because they had the oldest coach in Mac Brown. Now they still have the oldest coach, but he's younger than Mac Brown. But I just think it's timing for college football and the way that college football is being run right now. They had to know whether or not he was going to take it now, because they would miss out on all these potential transfers, the recruiting, you name it. And by the way, I think Freddie Kitchens is the interim head coach, or had been the interim head coach.
He is. I brought that up the other day because I don't know if it was a day that you were
I was
in
out.
or not.
I didn't hear
but it was a scroll when they fired Mac Brown. It was a scroll on CBS Sports Network. I saw it. It was like Freddie Kitchens, the interim head coach, and I was like, ghost from Losers Past. Everybody remember Freddie Kitchens?
Well, I mean, good for him, though. I mean, he was a former player, and he's hung on, and he's moved around just like every other coach in this business has.
Yeah, because it's a cockroach.
But the point being is that, you have to be an all-in guy, and they have to know that you're an all-in guy if you want to stay within the fraternity of coaches.
Yeah, I think this is a dumb move for Bill Belichick. I don't like it at all. And now if he didn't get a single sniff from the NFL, I mean, that would be one thing. But to take this job before you got into the offseason in the NFL, when you still have a shot at the all-time coaching record in the NFL, this is silly to me, taking this job at 70-something. It's not 60-something where he could put in 5 years and then go back to the NFL. I think it's silly. And I think that even though he has this 400-page manual, he's got, I'm going to have this guy deal with nil, and I'm going to have this guy deal with that. There's so many things, because he is so football. He's 100% pure football, and all of this BS that he's going to have to deal with and go to dinners and shake hands and kiss ass and convince these kids. He is going to hate it. I'm not concerned about what he does at practice and dealing with the kids and their personalities. I'm concerned with all the BS that he's going to have to deal with when he's sitting in that office or has to put on a suit jacket to go tongue bathe some dude who is going to give $60 million to the collective or not. Like, that's the stuff that Bill's going to hate.
He had to do that with Robert Kraft. He had to do that with Art Modell. He had to do that with a lot of different people.
Not like this, though. I mean, they were going to spend money on the team. Like, Robert Kraft was a great owner.
But I would just
one guy, too.
I just want to know if he's going to the Wasabi Fenway Bowl that they're playing in against UConn. That would be a hell of a triumphant return in Boston at Fenway Park. Bill Belichick on the sideline for the North Carolina Tar Heels.
It's embarrassing.
By the way, I don't even know what bowl season is anymore. There are reports, and I did a Sports Minute on this.
Okay.
And
I always look forward to it.
Yeah, I know you are. You always look forward to it.
Yeah.
But so the Marshall football team, the Thundering Herd, had a great year, and I'm sure Natalie's very happy about that. So they had a great year. They win their conference championship, and the coach gets hired by Southern Mississippi immediately. So they have an interim head coach. Now there's all sorts of reports all over social media. I don't know how accurate they are, but seems to be relatively accurate, that a lot of his players are going into the transfer portal to go with him to Southern Miss. And I'm like, they're in a bowl game against Army. It's the Independence Bowl against Army. What team is showing up to play Army in the Independence Bowl? Do you have any idea, Eddie?
Well, I know Army will be there.
Yeah, because those guys aren't leaving. Those guys aren't transferring.
No transfer portal there.
Well, there might be a few. I don't know. But, at the end of the day, I mean, like, college football has, I don't know. Some people like it. I think it's personally been ruined. The bowl games used to be something. As a senior in college, I got hurt in my bowl game that meant nothing to nobody other than just playing a game and having a nice end of the season.
Mm-hmm.
And my senior year, Reggie White separated my left throwing shoulder in the Citrus Bowl. Yeah, is right.
Mm-hmm.
So I understand why a lot of these players don't play and they enter the transfer portal, or the guys that are getting ready for the NFL draft, they don't want to play. They don't want to risk any sort of injury, and plus they want to play in these the All-Star games where all the scouts are going to be.
Yeah, I mean, but listen to some of the stuff you said about what goes on in college football. I mean, I know that Bill Belichick plans to be in the playoff and expects to be there and dealing with the highest level of college football. But, I mean, it's just you just said, I think college football's been ruined.
I think it has been, but it's
Bill Belichick's going to walk in there and have a good time doing this? It's insane.
Given the amount of money that everybody is making in college football, great. I don't have I guess I really have nothing against it. All I know is that I told the University of Maryland, I'll give you a scholarship money for an equipment manager, but I'm not giving you any money for a football player. I'm sorry. I'm just not doing that anymore.
Yeah.
I used to give money to all the scholarship programs and everything. That was fine. But I'm not doing that anymore. Now they're asking, supporters to be part of collectives so they can pay high school or transfer portal kids hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions.
Think about all
look what BYU just did with that top basketball player. They gave him a nil deal between $10 and $15 million, and he might graduate in 2026.
Yeah, May. Right. And by the way,
not graduate, but leave the school.
Think about all the guys, the old school coaches in both basketball and football that left because of these rules. Where you've got, obviously, Nick Saban, Coach K, Jay Wright, Roy Williams. There's a million guys.
It's a good point you just make about Nick Saban, because I'm sure Bill Belichick has been speaking to him, obviously very close friends, and probably talking about things that need to be done in order to have a successful program. So I'm sure this 400-page manual probably had in it some of the recommendations that Nick Saban would have given him.
Yeah, but Nick Saban also decided at his age that it was enough and he didn't want to do it. And now Bill, who might be more of a stick in the mud than even Nick Saban is going to go into this? Not at Alabama, not at Georgia, not at Michigan, not at Ohio State, at friggin' North Carolina. It's insane. The whole thing is silly.
I personally think it's awesome. Chapel Hill is beautiful. I think it's great. I'm happy for him and his girlfriend. His girlfriend maybe wanted to get an MBA or something like that. She can do that.
NBA.
Work with the cheerleaders or whatever. But I think it's kind of fun.
Wants to be part of the WIL.
And by the way, his son is the defense coordinator at the University of Washington, and I'm sure his son is now going to come to him. And when we see the final contract, and whether or not in that contract it has Steve Belichick as the heir apparent, that's assuming that Bill Belichick is successful.
Yeah,
if Bill Belichick isn't successful over the 5 years, they're not going to want Steve Belichick to stay around.
I mean, and Steve Belichick, by the way, you want to talk about, he's got less personality than Bill, and he looks like Joe Dirt. So you're going to have that guy now be the heir apparent of the program? I mean, this whole thing.
Why are you shooting it down, man?
Because
it's a dream.
I told you for the last 13 minutes while I was shooting it down. I gave you all these reasons why. I think it's silly.
But no, I'm just saying, you're giving me all these reasons why. I'm just saying I can hear the disdain in your voice. Like maybe this is a dream of his to go back to college and coach in college someday.
It's not a dream of his. The dream of his was to break Shula's record in the NFL, and nobody had interest because the owners are wusses, and they didn't want to bring him in. That's what it comes down to.
Or the NFL didn't want Shula's record to be broken.
Well, that would be a conspiracy theory.
You think it's a total blackball situation?
No.
It has to be.
No. Why would they care? I mean, that would be something,
like I said, I feel bad for Giant fans because he would immediately excite the hell out of the Giant fan, much like the North Carolina fan right now. The North Carolina fan is just absolutely loving this.
Are they?
When was the last time you really talked about North Carolina football? Maybe when Lawrence Taylor was there.
Yeah, but are they?
Does he got a spot for Lawrence on the staff in some way?
Well, I'll side with Phil on that one, where he said absolutely 0% not. Now there are two things that I guess Bill's father was an assistant coach in North Carolina a long time ago, and you know that Bill's favorite player in the world is Lawrence Taylor. So there are two connections there.
Yeah, of course.
He's a nostalgic guy, whatever. But I still don't understand.
I think it's a beautiful thing.
I mean, okay.
I'm sorry.
You don't need to apologize.
What would have been even a more beautiful thing would have been for him to fix the Giants.
Well, obviously.
I'm on board with that with you there. But I'm just saying that timing is everything. And college football timing is right now. You have to start making decisions. You got to start preparing. You got to have your coaches in place. You got to know what's going on in the portal. That's what Mike Lombardi is going to handle. I mean, there's a lot of crap that they got to get going on.
Yeah, I know.
And I don't know how. And the other thing too. Now, Steve Belichick has been exposed to some of this stuff by being at the University of Washington, which is a very aggressive program, by the way. They're wheeling and dealing left and right in the nil portal and all that stuff, or the portal, transfer portal, I should say, and then also the nil deals. But I don't know. There's something that is like I don't know. I kind of enjoy it. I can't wait to see it. I can't wait to see what that looks like.
You know, it's funny. I heard Alan Jerry talking about this, about like, if there's a North Carolina game on, in the next fall, and would you put that on as opposed to like a, Michigan whoever game and
Michigan, Indiana,
or something like that.
Yeah.
And they were like, yeah, no, I would. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, I'd be interested at first to see him wearing those colors, but like, do I really care about watching North Carolina football? And the answer is no. Like, how exciting are they going to be? Like, the reason why the Patriots were interesting during those times was because they had the greatest quarterback that we had ever seen. And then he had, Randy Moss for a couple of years, and the defenses were good, and they'd go up against Manning and Tom Brady. Like, I didn't put on the games because of Bill Belichick.
Hey, Eddie, you're a college football animal. Are you excited about this?
Very much so.
Well, there you go.
I think it's fantastic for college football.
Right. Oh, good. But I think it's
all right. Well, good. So
fantastic
we're both happy.
for college football. In what way, though? Like, how is this going to change anything for college football? It's still massively popular.
Well, yes, but you're going to have a guy who came from a pro system, paying players, what have you. I'm going to see how a great coach does. He's used to paying players and having GMs or having a cap person work with him. I want to see how he does in this system.
Well, you didn't answer the question. Why is it great for college football? You told me why you're interested, but why is it great for college football?
Just because that could be a blueprint for future coaches to see, how it's done if he is successful.
I also think that North Carolina is desperate. There's no question about it. They want to make themselves relevant, which is good, which they need to be. And I've said this before, so I'm not saying anything new here right now. And I think that there may be, because of his personal life, issues with NFL owners. I've said that. I said when it first came out that they were dating and everything else. Like, do you think that John Mara is going to want to have that around? I don't know. It just doesn't seem like a fit from that standpoint, which is unfortunate because he should be able to live his life any way he wants.
I don't know. There's just so many players that get second chances for things, and everything is excused and for like real legitimate things. You're telling me that just because there's some 24-year-old that wants to be with him, that's a bad thing for a head coach?
I personally don't think so, but I don't know. I'm just saying, I'm wondering if owners think that had something to do with, maybe that's why they iced them out. Maybe it is a personal, maybe the things, I don't know. You never know.
Yeah.
And look, this is 5 years, $50 million. Gets to coach with his son, gets to have his buddy Mike Lombardi with him.
He could have done this anywhere. He could have waited for an NFL job to happen. He would have hired the same guys there.
I'm sure that his agent was, pounding the pavement for NFL owners, and probably, because these owners end up talking all the time to different people.
Yeah, I mean, that's that. Then if that is the case, then that's exactly what I said when I opened up the show. I just shame on the owners for being that scared of handing him the keys, because he would have done a great job wherever he went to. And obviously, this who pooped out a watermelon yesterday was Brian Daboll. You know what I'm saying? Like, the relief that this guy had yesterday that Bill Belichick took that job, I'm sure was massive, because there's really no reason now. Like, who would you fire those guys for? Maybe Vrabel? I mean, I don't even know if they do that. So Belichick was really the only one. So I mean, now I feel.
And again, John Mara is not engaging in talks with Bill Belichick right now. He's just not.
Yeah, which would be that'd be bad to do that if John Mara.
Exactly. So you can't do it. So it really comes down to timing. And he had something that was guaranteed. He convinced himself that if he gave a 400-page manual, and then they would agree to everything that was in that manual, that he would accept the job and hire his son. And who knows? I can't wait to see that contract to see whether or not his son, is the heir apparent, assuming that they do well.
All right, Boomer and Gio on the Fan and CBS Sports Network.